The full motion video genre hasn't been the most outstanding genre the gaming industry has ever seen. The first full motion video game came out in 1983 and was titled Astron Built, which was then followed up by probably one of the most memorable games of the genre, Dragon's Lair.
Lead on, adventurer. Your quest awaits.
These types of games were certainly unique in their thinking, combining both a live action film with player or viewer choice and some pretty simple game mechanics, really allowing players the chance to make the story their own. It was meant to be the best of both worlds for both movie lovers and gamers. When it came to the 1990s, however, the genre was, well, let's say the genre went downhill a little bit, with tons of full motion video games coming out, and to be honest, they weren't very good. They were low budget, the acting was on the same level as porn acting, and the whole experience just felt extremely cheap. They were well behind the film industry and they just weren't as enjoyable as the games coming out during this period. After that, it felt like the full motion video genre was not evolving anywhere. But in recent years, the genre seems to be blossoming into something quite interesting. Her Story was a real triumph when it came out, winning over fans as it told a quite gripping player-controlled story, which was universally praised and still holds a very high score on Steam. There was also the Netflix release of Bandersnatch, which could be argued as more of a film, but it certainly took inspiration from that genre, allowing viewers to have a say in what happens to the main character, choosing the fate of other characters and allowing them to find the multiple endings. On top of that, you also had games like Detroit Become Human and Heavy Rain, which also implemented this genre's focus with simple game mechanics, heavy focus on cinematic story, and a lot of player choice, resulting in a ton of different endings. All these games evolved the genre by not only giving them a bigger budget, but also having a core focus on brilliant acting, great cinematography and editing. This leads me to the latest game within that genre, which is PlayStation 4's latest release titled Erica, a psychological mystery full motion video game that allows the player to tell the story of our main protagonist, Erica. For me, Erica is a game that brings out the best in the genre. Whilst the full motion video genre is still not a big genre and still isn't blowing audiences away, it's titles like Erica that really make me think that the genre certainly is evolving in the right direction and can actually become a massive hit in the coming future, combining both modern cinematic techniques with the new mechanics and technology that the gaming industry now possesses. Erica is made by a small British company called Flavorworks. The game describes itself as an interactive thriller that tells the story of a young girl called Erica, who has lived a life surrounded by a ton of mysteries and some horrifying murders. Throughout the game, you are uncovering secrets about your past, finding out more about dark cultists, and venturing through an eerie asylum filled with girls of the similar age to Erica. Whilst the premise of the game seems pretty standard and not all that inspiring, the actual story as you progress through it is actually really enjoyable. If you are a fan of films like Shutter Island, then this story will certainly be for you. It's dark, it's got extremely tense moments, and it's just a really gripping piece of storytelling that will have you immersed from the offset. This is done through the absolutely amazing cinematography. Every shot and every scene is shot with such a clear intention and mimics exactly what the character is going through, and sometimes it's shot in a way that foreshadows events that are yet to come. The lighting in every scene matches the emotion of the character and the tone of the narrative, and the editing makes the pacing of the game engaging and fluid. The acting alongside the technical side to the storytelling is, at most part, really good. The main character Erica, played by Holly Earl, was a very interesting character. On the surface, Erica may not seem like the most dynamic character in the world, but when she does show emotions like anger, worry, or even during her emotive moments, she really shows off her brilliant acting skills, making for some truly immersive scenes. But for me, the interesting thing about Erica's character was she sort of acted as if she was a blank canvas, meaning that despite her being fully voiced and acted, you felt like you were completely in her shoes and allowing you, the player, the chance to mold her into the character you want her to be. If she was completely her own character with a clear personality from the get-go, you, the player, wouldn't really be as immersed into the story and you wouldn't really feel like you were shaping her story into the way that you wanted it to go. If you wanted her to be a ruthless character who didn't take no for an answer, you needed her to be a blank canvas from the start so you could shape her into that. Otherwise, if she was from the offset this sweet, lovable, happy character, it wouldn't really make much sense this transition. For me, the whole direction of her character from Jack Attridge and the way the whole narrative was executed was really well planned out, and it just made it that much more of an immersive experience, allowing the player to really shape a character into who they wanted her to be. There were some performances in the game, however, where the acting just felt a bit flat or not as on par as some of the others. Don't get me wrong, they weren't as bad as some of the actors from the horrible 90s full motion video games, but to me they just weren't the strongest in the cast. but as an all-round, most of the characters were really well directed, and as an ensemble they tell quite a brilliant story. But the best thing about Erica, and the thing that makes this game stand out more than anything else, is the amount of player choice the story contains. In Erica, every single choice you make makes a massive difference into which direction the game goes in. There are scenes where you have to decide whether you answer a phone call, for example, or follow a creepy random stranger wearing a bunny mask who runs down the hallway. There's also a scene right at the start where you can confront your neighbour who sounds unwell, or you can just leave her completely and just hide behind your door. Every choice you make plays a crucial part in shaping the story at hand. You can form friendships with certain characters, or you can turn against them. This opens up different paths filled with different lines of dialogue and more facts into what is happening in the story. As you progress through the whole campaign, you unlock more information about what is happening, who is causing these murders, and what your role in all of this is. However, by the end of the game, all your actions result in a completely unique ending that will most likely be different from everyone else, as it will all depend on who they befriend, who they trusted, and who they believe. It's really quite amazing to me how many choices there really are in this game. There were so many things I wanted to know by the end, but because of the specific choices I made, I wasn't fully able to find out what those things were. This instantly made me want to go back and try different options to see if I can unlock new character scenes, understand more about side characters, and get a different ending to the story. The game will take you around 2 to 3 hours like a feature film, but because of the multiple endings you will constantly want to jump back into it to make sure you don't miss out anything and uncover every single mystery. But when it comes to the gameplay, this is sadly where the game suffers a little bit. Now, to be clear, this game isn't exactly one that has you trying to memorize buttons or move sets or even have you do that much at all. The game is pretty simple and will most of the time have you selecting dialogue options, swiping items across the screen, and selecting which direction you go to next. At first I thought the game was just implementing meaningless tasks to make sure it passed as a video game. Sometimes it was just as simple as turn on a light or open a door, which isn't the most engaging gameplay ever. I did, however, like the fact that these interactive sections were shot as stop motion. It felt like it fit the cinematic look to the game, and it also just made those interactive sections stand out.
We even don't stop there. We do some really cool things with this tech we've built, like allowing you to pull the focus in the camera itself. And really modeling this world to feel like it's 3D and solid, as opposed to, just a flat video on a screen.
But despite the fact that these tasks felt a bit pointless, the more I played it, the more I realised why these things were implemented. Having these simple tasks put in between dialogue scenes helps the player get immersed into the game and makes them wonder when the next interaction will happen. With each interaction, especially the dialogue sections, being on a set timer, it means that if you lose concentration or aren't waiting in anticipation for something to happen, you will miss the chance to choose the option you want, meaning that the story could go in a different direction. Because of these quite menial tasks, you are constantly on edge during the whole game, and your attention will be constantly focused on what could happen next and making you sure you don't miss out on important dialogue. But the real problem with the gameplay was the controls. Unfortunately, Erica's controls feel pretty awkward to use. The default control for the game is not the PlayStation controller in the conventional sense, but actually the touchpad. With this touchpad you will swipe the screen in the direction that is shown on screen, and you will also have to hold your finger down and move it toward the dialogue option that you want to select. It's trying to be creative and make use of the touchpad on the PlayStation controller, but unfortunately the touchpad is pretty small, meaning that sometimes it's really hard to do some of the movements that it's asking you to do, and for anyone with largest fingers it just doesn't work all that well. It's also not the most responsive control in the world. It works and it's not necessarily the game's fault, more the hardware's, but it just makes doing the actions the game wants you to do really quite a pain and not that fun to do. Luckily for the game, the controller isn't the only thing you can control the game with. You can in fact use the Erica app on your phone and use the phone screen as the touchpad. For me this worked much better as there was a bigger surface area which you can move about on, and it also just felt nicer to use as you're using your mobile quite on a regular basis, so it just felt natural to me. The only real problem with this though was it really drains your battery, so if you do plan on playing the game using the mobile app, make sure you charge your phone or it will just probably die halfway through. But apart from those small problems, for me Erica really was an absolutely brilliant experience. The storytelling, although it may have some cliches along the way, was really quite a dark, mysterious and engaging story that shared resemblance to films like Shutter Island. The acting within the game is pretty good most of the time, with the standout performance being from Holly Earl. The direction from Jack Attridge combined with the brilliant cinematography and editing really ties all of this into one brilliant piece of storytelling. The menial task that you have to perform keeps you engaged during the story and make you feel like you're really playing a part in shaping it all together. But the real standout feature of the game was the amount of different choices that the game gives you throughout. Every choice you make leads to a new path, opening up dialogue trees, relationships with side characters, and resulting in a wide choice of endings. The game has so much replayability, and it really is an experience that you will want to go back and play. Definitely go and check out Erica, it certainly is a breath of fresh air. Its production quality really shows to me that there is hope for the full motion video genre, and if we can have titles as strong as this one coming out, then I'm all for it. Erica is a real masterpiece of storytelling, and hopefully Flavorworks will get the recognition they deserve for making a truly great interactive story.